Thank you for joining me, everybody out there. Uh, I had all this grand ideas and everything, and at the last minute, they all went out the window. Um, but the bottom line is you've read the post, you're here, so you know what's going on. Today, February 4th. Actually, it's a very auspicious day. Besides being my 35th sobriety birthday. Yes. That's pretty powerful. I've been sober 35 years. Uh, I couldn't exactly tell you that I made the decision on February 4th, 1986 to stop drinking, to stop smoking pot, to stop taking drugs. Because I really didn't know what was going on back then. I was going down a very deep hole with no coming back. Um, and it's just February 4th, 1986 was the day that I took my last drink, my last drug, my last smoke or whatever. Short of taking over-the-counter medications, like Advil or Tylenol, cough syrup for or things like that, and some natural supplements. I I, I don't take anything. I do not drink. When I got sober, or prior to getting sober, I didn't drink because it tasted good, or it made what was it, a beer commercial? Tastes great, less filling. No, I drank beer to get drunk. I wasn't much of a wine person, though that was, I believe, no, it wasn't the last drink I had. I think the last drink I had was a beer. Um, I wasn't big into hard liquor. Drugs, well, I've done just about everything except putting a needle in my body. Um, and the reason I didn't go down that road, so I have many friends who were addicts. I was considered an addict. I am an addict. I had many friends who went down the road of heroin and shooting cocaine and we called it speed back then. I don't know if they call it speed anymore. Meth, crank, crack, whatever it was. I did smoke, snort, and do all that. And I'm not here to glorify my past. It's just to give you an idea. I've tried just about everything that was available back in up until the late 80s or mid 80s, mid late 80s. I drank to excess. I I was a party animal. I felt that I was the life of the party, but really it was about insecurities and trying to fit, trying to belong. And that wore out over time. I lost my job. No, I didn't get fired. It's the interesting thing when I was doing all these drugs and alcohol and everything. I always had a straight job. I always showed up for work. I did the work. Now it doesn't mean I wasn't high at work. That's a whole other story. But and the crazy thing was is I used to be a hydraulic mechanic. And I used to work on these big presses, for example. And this is dangerous work. You're working on these 10-ton presses. They're giant machines. I mean, if those of you who've been in my studio, these machines would be bigger than my studio. They'd be as wide as the studio that I'm here, and probably twice as tall. So figure a machine that's 2 stories tall, or even 3 stories tall, depending on the type of machinery. And you'd be under them working on them, and all you have to do is slip once with a wrench or something and remove the wrong bolt or do something silly. And not only could you get seriously hurt, you could literally be killed. And I would do this drunk, stoned, or whatever. And again, I'm not glorifying my days. I'm not here to preach about my drug abuse or how I got here exactly. I wanted to talk a little bit about sobriety in general and what it means to me. That's part of how I got to Minnesota. And I'm just going to talk a bit before I go play. So I moved from New York to California, and I was already a wreck on the way out there before I left New York. But things escalated because of where I ended up. And I'm not blaming the people who I was around. They're really good people, and I'm really hoping that many of them are still alive today and not, didn't succumb to the abuses I did and didn't make it. But it was easy to get stuff, we'll just say that. And because of that, the excesses were very readily available. They were always readily available once you really get deep into it. But towards the end, when I made decisions that it was time, and I can't say it was time, I just didn't know what to do anymore and how to handle things because I was in such bad shape. So I actually came to Minnesota, and it's actually almost a funny story. I came to Minnesota. I left February 4th, 1986, so that's the date. So that's the date I got on the plane. And I showed up here from California wearing a maroon windbreaker, tan khakis, sneakers, white socks, because you were wearing white socks back then, gym socks, extra change of underwear, extra t-shirt, and the jacket was a maroon windbreaker. I don't remember the shirt. I think it was a collared shirt, and it might have been a long sleeve. I like to wear long sleeves, even when in the summer, because I have really skinny arms. I had no winter coat. It was 10 below when I got off the plane, and I left California. I don't think it was 70, but it was probably in the mid to upper 60s. And I actually got invited here by a friend of the family, and God rest his soul. He was an addict, and he was very well off. He had money. And in the end, with all that money and everything, he ended up, they found him in a rundown apartment with a needle in his arm. He overdosed, and he died in that apartment. And he was wealthy, and he had everything in the world. So what I'm getting at is money. It doesn't matter your status. It doesn't matter your financial status. It doesn't matter about your social status. When you get hooked into the addiction, it doesn't care. It will take you just the way you are. So you don't have to be low poverty. You don't have to be upper echelons with all the money in the world or anywhere in between. Addiction does not care. It will take you beyond your knees. It will take you right into the grave. And the only way out of it is to come clean and be true to yourself. So I ended up in Minnesota, and I bounced around for a couple of days. They're trying to get me into a treatment center. And I ended up in a treatment center in St. Paul called Twin Town. I believe it's still there. I was inpatient there full-time. The longest stay, I believe at the time, was 45 days. The average stay was 3 weeks to 30 days, so 21 to 30 days roughly. I was in the longest. And then after that, I went to Fellowship, which is the halfway house in St. Paul. That used to be the old Schmidt's Brewery. It's the big mansion in the back there, down off, I want to say 7th and Randolph, over that area. Anyway, and I was there for their max stay also. And the reason they do that is if they feel you've got some serious issues. Obviously, I had some serious issues. And it worked, and it stuck. And I got involved with AA, and I got involved with NA, Narcotics Anonymous, which is a different slant because it's more focused towards, we'll say, the junkie and the addict than AA. AA can sometimes, and I'm not criticizing Alcoholics Anonymous, but sometimes their focus is you're an alcoholic, but not. It's hard to explain unless you're in the program. And again, I'm not dissing on any of it. It's just the NA people are a little bit more forgiving in some of the traditions and requirements. I wouldn't say requirements. They're a little bit. I don't want to say lax because we take it very seriously. And I've had a sponsor, and I've been a sponsor, and I've helped a lot of people over the years, give advice. I actually, I'm sort of a loose sponsor for a few people right now that are working the steps and working their programs. What I'd like to do is I'm going to read from the big book. I don't know if this will come up right or not. It's probably backwards. Oh, look at that! My screen says it's the right. So this is my big book. I've had this 35 years. Those are my initials. And I'm going to read some passages from it. But first of all, I think we're going to do the Serenity Prayer. And those of you out there, if you'd like to join me, if you know it, great. If not, just listen along. But the Serenity Prayer goes like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. So I'm going to read, as soon as I find my bookmark, Chapter 5. I'm going to read a little bit of Chapter 5 here. And Chapter 5 is called How It Works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember, we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power, and that one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us? Nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care and complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Step 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol and our lives had become unmanageable. Step 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Step 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Step 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. Step 5. Admitted to God and ourselves, to other human beings, the exact nature of our wrongs. Step 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Step 7. Humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Step 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9. Made direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Step 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Step 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Many of us exclaim, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is, we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A. We were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. And C. That God that God could and would if He were sought. Being convinced, we were at step 3, which is that we decided to turn our will and our life over to God as we understood Him. So that's the basics of it. And what I mean is God comes in many forms. You don't have to be Catholic, you don't have to be religious, you don't have to be Jewish, you don't have to be Muslim. You're allowed to even be an atheist. As long as you believe something outside of yourself that you can hold on to that will help you through your times of struggle. And believe me, 35 years, I've had plenty of times of struggle. And I cannot tell you that I have not wanted to drink. Because there are times, even now, 35 years later, it's not like right now I want to go have a drink. No. But there are times when okay, my natural birthday was about 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. Okay, I just turned 64. And those of you in Minnesota here, or at least in the cities, may know the steakhouse called Lindy's. Lindy's Steak. They've been around since 1953. And we have a tradition that on our birthdays we go and have a Lindy's steak. Wonderful sirloin steak, okay? And why am I telling you about a steak dinner? Because this wonderful steak, this wonderful meal, could, to really top it off. Now, some people would like to have a glass of wine. I guess I'm not a wine person, but a Heineken beer with a really good steak, you know? And you would think 35 years later, You couldn't have a steak and a beer? No, because I understand my limitations. As soon as I start drinking that beer and my body reacts back to that knowing, the body has memories. It's not the brain, it's the physical body has memories. The cellular memory says, oh, yeah, I remember that. And immediately the cravings will start. And the problem is once the cravings start, I can't stop them. So I may get by with having the one beer at the steak, with the steak dinner right then and there. But the following day, or the day after, or a couple of days later, that craving's going to come back. Because I know myself. And it's going to say, you remember that? Remember that beer you had? Well, wouldn't you really like to have another one? And then I could justify it, because I could say, okay, well, I like Mexican food. I like tacos. I like nachos. I like chips and salsa. So why can't I have a Mexican beer like a Dos Equis or a Corona with some chips and salsa or with tacos? Right? I mean, think about it. I mean, that's a fantastic meal. Or okay, so if I did like wine, well, I'm Sicilian, so if I'm having a really nice pasta dinner, a nice glass of rosé with that would be really awesome. Or I had a really good dinner. I would really like a cup of coffee. But what would really be nice? How about some Baileys in that coffee, or a little amaretto, or some Sambuca, shots of Sambuca. Well, since we're just doing that, and the night's still young and it's kind of nice out, well, why don't we just make a vodka tonic, or a screwdriver, or how about a nice brunch, with a mimosa. Or when I lived in Long Beach, New York. Okay, I lived on the beach in New York when I was late teens, early 20s. And I worked at an airplane factory at night. I worked on electrical department, the wiring department, the electrical department, cockpit, box and panel. And I worked night shift, and I would get out of work at 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning, and we'd go to a bar. And back in those days in New York, the bars closed at 5 a.m. That's when they start shutting you down and kick you out by 5:30, because 6 o'clock is the cleaning crew would come in to start getting ready, and then some bars were restaurants, so they might be open for breakfast. Anyway, so we would drink all night. And since I lived on the beach, I could hang out on the beach in the morning watching the sunrise. I had a water cooler full of sangria. So I could have sangria anytime I wanted. I mean, the insanity of having the alcohol anytime. So, again, I'm not trying to glorify, it's just this is why I can't have a beer with steak, or why I can't have a beer with tacos or nachos or a glass of wine, because I can't stop myself. The same thing goes with drugs. I still go to concerts when I can. Well, obviously with the pandemic we don't have it, but I still enjoy life. But what I do is I'm a member of a group called the Wharf Rats, named after a Grateful Dead song, and they are sober concert goers that get together, still see shows, and we support each other, and we spread the message of clean living. And I have to mention that about the Wharf Rats, because they've been a huge part of my life, and allowing me to continue to do what I love, which is be around live music, play, and this is just what I do with the sound therapy, sound healing, playing the singing bowls and gongs is an extension of that. So, I see I've got almost a half hour up. This is about what I wanted to talk. And I'm glad you stayed with me. So I'm going to switch over to the other camera and the other microphone system. So what I'd like you to do is get yourself comfortable. If you have any questions right now, you know, if you want to type them in, I've got a couple of minutes here, just a couple, or maybe afterwards, if you have any questions. Let me go check the other page here. Okay. Too many screens to look at. So I'm going to switch right now, since I don't see any questions. So hang on, it's going to blank out for a second, and then I'm going to turn it over. So.